Robert E. Lee Soil and Water Conservation District hosted a farm tour promoting agricultural conservation programs.
Well, the cost share program has been good for me, and I would assume it is for everyone else if they take advantage of it. It certainly reduces your cost on doing some of these major projects that we're doing by probably about half. So that makes it very affordable. And some of the things that I've done here, I would not have done without some assistance.
To have your local agent that has specific training in how to teach you and help you be a successful or run a successful farm operation is key. Where can you get that type of mentorship free?
There's been a big focus on phosphorus, and especially related to the Chesapeake Bay. And if just in Sam's Club the other day, where a place you don't even think about buying fertilizer, but they have started to carry a lot of lawn and garden items. I was just browsing and looking, and the lawn fertilizers that are available there, they don't have any phosphorus. Yep. And you know, on the books in Virginia, there actually is such a thing as a fertilizer applicator's license. And that came about several years ago, and there was no money budgeted for enforcement or actual implementation. And I think as we move forward, we're going to see more of that, where actually you may have to have a license to buy fertilizer.
I used to run this farm the old-fashioned way. My cattle stood in the creeks, stood in the river, and I never thought anything about it because that's the way, that's what I saw all my life. And my granddad was the same way, and my dad was the same way. And as I started working with the local agent, I started learning these things. I said, wow, I need to learn to do it the right way and teach my grandchildren, my children, my grandchildren, the right way to do it.
I signed up because I wanted to get this cost sharing. This was a way of deferring some cost that I would otherwise have to take out of my pocket.
This is one of a tire trough. It's a pressure tire trough, and believe it or not, the well that supplies this trough is 4,400 feet away from this trough. There is no limit to how far we can pump water.
They've helped me on two things in a technical way. Helped me on sizing pipe. So what you want to size pipe for is you want to get that flow, enough water flowing to serve the cattle that you've got, the numbers of cattle you have. And then also you got to make sure that you got enough pressure to operate your valves.
And you want to make sure if you're going to use a tire trough that you get a heavy-duty equipment tire. There's some tires that you think might be heavy-duty equipment tires that aren't going to hold up as well as a big pan tire.
A regular tractor tire won't hold?
No, sir. A tractor tire, what happens is the cows come up and they get to butting against it and they pop loose the concrete under it, and then it's not sealed. There's concrete poured in the bottom of these that seal them.
In this case, you take a spring, it's free-flowing spring. Rather than have cattle wade into that spring and stomp around that spring, they actually will develop a spring in such a way that you can put an underground accumulator, pipe it down to a trough. When you get through, it's all said and done, you put dirt and grow grass over top of that spring, and you'll never know it's there.
The most important thing in a cattle operation is forage, is the grass. And but you know, we don't often think about that. We're thinking about all these other things with the cattle, but the most important thing to cattle is something to eat.
Now, I think most of you have a map showing the pasture system that's in place here. We're actually standing by pasture number 6. And if you look across the field, if this didn't have all the different cross fencing and areas sectioned out, what animals tend to do, that they're selective grazers, and they will go back and they won't eat things they don't like. And if you look out there, you'll see some plants that, if you like flowers, they may look very attractive to you, and those are the buttercups. There was quite a few at the first farm we went to this afternoon. And that's actually a toxic plant. The cows don't eat this. They bloom, they set a lot of seed, they drop the seed. So over just a few years' time, you can build a substantial seed bank out in the soil. And if you don't have a good vegetative cover to help shade those plants from coming up in the fall, you can end up with fields that look solid in this.
To be any type of farmer, cattle farmer, horse farmer, to be any type of farmer, we first need to be a grass farmer. How do we grow and take care of the grass?
So what we're talking about rotational grazing, it goes back to that, you take half and leave half. My theory is my yard, he had mentioned earlier about he didn't do anything to his yard. My yard's been there 10 years. I mow at the highest setting on my lawnmower, and over 10 years, it takes time to build pasture, to build grass.
With grass, once you graze it down or cut it down, the new growth that comes out is going to be very tender. And that's why just a continuously open pasture, you'll see spots where you have a lot of no growth because the animals have just gone back to those spots and just kept eating and kept eating. If you have a field with Johnson grass, which most of our row crop farmers don't like because it grows so well in our hot, dry conditions because of the root system and the way it can produce a lot of seed. If you want to get rid of it, the best way to get rid of it is to put it in pasture. The animals will keep eating it as it tries to regrow, and eventually they'll deplete all of the resources in the root system as the plant tries to regrow, and they can kill it off.
I've cross-fenced and keep the cattle out of the streams. I've actually cross-fenced to keep cattle out of the forest, which is a very, very good thing to do, and actually run, in place of the streams, dug wells and run water to troughs so the cattle can have water at all times.
You're creating smaller paddocks out of your larger paddocks so that you can move them from paddock to paddock after so many days of grazing, and then they don't eat your grass down so low. You control how low you want them to eat it before you move them, and what happens with that is your grass, the roots of your grass, the length on the top is similar to the roots in the, underground. So if you eat it down tight all the time, which a lot of us used to do before rotational grazing, then our grass systems cannot grow. I'd say with the no-till drill, you're spending less time in the field, less time on the tractor, less fuel, and you get a better stand because you're not having to work the ground and as much with plow it and disc it.
We've been renting saw drills for about 20 years, I guess, and it's a place for them, conserves fuel, saves your soils, improves your land. It'll place the seed a little better, control your depth. It's almost like a unit like this for soybeans, because it sows fescue, your grasses, grain sorghum.
A friend of mine uses no-till drills in rye in the fall, and then feeds that late winter instead of hay. You're not had to haul it, the labor of feeding it and tractor and fuel and so there's a lot of uses for no-till drill.
Through the Virginia Agricultural Cost Share Program, pumps that supply water to watering troughs may operate on alternative energy sources if they are considered the most cost-effective for the specific farm. Some producers have chosen to implement windmills as an alternative energy source. Windmills harness the free and renewable power of the wind and uses that energy to lift underground water to the surface. The windmill captures the energy of the wind with a large circular fan located at the top of the tower. The mechanical gears or motor converts this motion into an up and down motion that moves the rod and powers the pump located deep underground. The water is pumped above ground and stored in a reservoir and gravity fed to a water trough with a float valve for constant water supply. The district and the NRCS staff assist producers with every step to ensure that they feel comfortable with the agricultural cost share programs. The first step in the program is to arrange an on-site meeting between the producer, the district, and the NRCS staff. This meeting is designed for the conservation planners to view the farm, grasp the understanding of the current operations, determine the future goals of the producer, and discuss program eligibility and details. If the producer is eligible and interested in applying for any conservation programs, then the district and the NRCS staff can create a conservation plan for the operation. They can provide a conservation plan with several design option layouts and cost estimates provided through a current itemized value of products such as fencing, pipeline, water troughs, and wells. Once the producer agrees to a specific plan, they enter into a contract agreement with the district or the NRCS and are given a timeline of a year to complete the installation of the practices. The producer is responsible for all costs accrued during the installation of the practices. Farmers pay all associated costs up front and are reimbursed at the end of the project. Once the practices have been completed and approved by the district and the NRCS staff, the producer will receive their pre-approved cost share reimbursement payment. The Virginia Agricultural Cost Share Program typically offers a cost share rate of 75% of the total cost and a 25% tax credit on any out-of-pocket expenses. Although some select areas offer up to 100% cost share reimbursement for specific programs and properties located within designated watersheds. Districts can provide producers with a list of local vendors and contractors who are familiar with program requirements and standards. From the first day of sign-up to the final practice implementation, district and NRCS staff will guide the producer through the conservation planning process. This video was made possible through the funding from James River Association and Altria. For more information on Virginia's agricultural cost share programs, please contact your local soil and water conservation districts.